What's up guys, welcome back to another Warhammer Tacticus video. In today's video I'm going to be doing a guide for the new legendary release event, the Angels of Death, for the new Blood Angel character Mephiston. So first I'm going to go over the new character and his abilities so you can get a better idea of how much you really want this guy. So first off, he's an Imperial unit. He's the brand new faction, the Blood Angels. He has the Psyker as well as Terrifying traits. His passive ability, basically after moving he does a psychic attack that will hit 2 enemies, and those enemies can't recover any health or be revived for 2 rounds. And if he doesn't move, it triggers at the end of the turn, similar to like something like Aleph Null's passive. And his active ability is a bit weird, so it targets a hex within 2 range, and it basically, Mephiston will move onto that hex, and any unit that was on that hex will move to Mephiston's previous location. So it's kind of like Yazagor's ability where he like swaps with another unit. And you get some additional bonuses if that character was a Blood Angel, but there's only 2 out right now. And it also won't trigger Overwatch, so it kind of has like an infiltrate ability. So overall, I do think he's a pretty decent character. I don't really see where he like fits into being super meta right now, but I think he will be a decent character in legendary release events just for the fact that he's a Psyker and his passive ability, so you can get some decent AoE damage out. As well as, just being a pretty tanky Imperial unit with the Terrifying trait. But other than that, I don't think this guy's like a must-have, and if you were going to spend money just to be able to get this guy sooner and instead of waiting till the next event, I wouldn't really recommend that, as he's not really as impactful as some of the other characters like Karn or Ragnar. But anyways, let's get right into the best traits and combinations of traits and what teams you should be looking at to get the furthest possible in this event. So to plan out my teams, as usual, I use the Tacticus planner app. I'll leave a link in the description below so you guys can use this tool for yourself. It's a really great tool. If you're curious about or confused about how to use it, I go over this in my original legendary release event guide for Ragnar, so if you want to just watch that video, I teach you how to use this app and plan out your teams. But today I'm just going to be doing it for you guys, showing you some of the best like combinations of traits that lead to pretty strong character rosters that will be able to help you progress further. Because that's one thing that a lot of these guides and stuff don't show you. Even though you can plan your teams, it doesn't actually show you what teams and what units you should be using that are going to be good and take you far in this event. So for our first track, the Alpha track, you get no Imperials, and you're going to be going against the Astra Militarum. So for our first combination of traits, I'm going to be using minimum 2 hits, melee only, and our last one is going to be power. And this gives us access to one of our like Holy Trinity combos, one of the best combos in legendary release events, and it's going to be Angrax, Malladus, and Rotbone. And you can slot them in. They'll take you as far as you can possibly go in this event, and you can use those three characters for all 3 of these teams, which is really useful. So for those tracks, we're going to be using that. You could also slot in Anshi if you're lucky enough to have him as your 4th character there. And you don't need 5 characters, you just need 3 to start. So this is plenty. These characters are going to be really great and take you pretty far down this track. For our next traits, we're going to be doing just flying. So we have access to a lot of really good characters here. The main ones being Rivas and Aleph Null. These 2 together are a really great combination and will take you super far. From there, you could pretty much just slot in whatever other units you have. Athena's a decent one because you already have her decently leveled for the campaign, and her passive will buff up Rivas and Aleph Null. You could also just slot in whoever else you have, like the Winged Tyrant Guard is pretty good as he gets summons every turn and gets that 1 tanky summon from his active ability. Other than that, just slot in whoever you want. If you have Ahriman, he's a good unit. He can repeatedly use his active as an AoE ability, which is great. So he's definitely good here, but if you don't have him, that's no big deal. Your main combination here is Rivas and Aleph Null, and those 2 are going to take you the furthest down that track. And then for our last trait, we're going to do Psychic, and this is pretty kind of a new track, and it's a little bit more difficult. There's not a ton of really good Psychic characters, and a lot of the decent, like good ones are legendaries. So Typhus and Ahriman are both going to be great here. If you have either of those characters, definitely slot them in. Otherwise, we have Eldrion. He's going to be pretty high level as he's just such a good unit with his passive, so I'm sure you already have him pretty decently leveled for guild raids and campaign. Then we're going to use Abraxas and Archamados. Abraxas is our main carry here. We're just going to try to get as many summons as possible on turn 1. And then we could use Yazagor to try to reset Abraxas' active just to get a ton of summons out. And those summons are going to rush the spawn points, which will help to limit the amount of enemies spawning each turn. And then you'll be able to just clean up the rest of those enemies with a unit like Archamados, whose passive ability, every time he kills one of those units, will get another summon, and then this will just perpetuate itself. And your goal here is really just to spam out as many summons as possible and crowd up the battlefield so the least amount of enemies spawn each turn. So those are the teams we're going to be using for the alpha track. Now let's go on to the beta track. So for the beta track, we have no chaos. So for our first combination of traits, we're going to be doing no big target, minimum 3 hits, and mechanical. And this will give us 3 characters that we can use: Alefnol, Emospec, and Anufet. I'm going to slot all those in for each of these. Our main carry here is going to be Alefnol, just with his healing ability. And then you could also use Emospec, use his Overwatch to your advantage, and keep healing him up with Alefnol. And then as the turns tick by, once you have a full round of summons of Anufet, you'll get the full all-around summons of Anufet, and those will help you through the later rounds of the battle where it starts to get more difficult. But your main focus here is just Alefnol, healing everybody up, keeping everyone alive. They're all Necrons, so they'll get additional health at the start of each turn, which is really great for just sustaining. If you don't have Anufet to do these 3 tracks at once, you'll just do the mechanical track on its own, and then you could do no big target and minimum 3 hits together. And your best choices here are going to be Brother Burchard is a really great unit, Alefnol again. Then you could slot in, if you have Brother Jaeger, you can use him here. He's going to be great. Gibboscraps is decent with his tank, as well as Snotflaga being decent with his recurring summons. And then you could just use a Bellator Isabella team if you have them. Bellator you should definitely have. Brother Burchard you should definitely have because these are campaign characters and farmable in the game. Alefnol you should definitely have. And I would say those 3 should be the backbone of your team. Other great units, definitely Isabella would be the main carry here. So for like the earlier rounds, you can use the 3 trait team with just the 3 mechanical units to get you to like stage 6, where it starts to get really difficult. You can take off the mechanical and just do these 2 traits with Isabella, and that'll be your primary team to take you literally just as far as you can go to like round 10, whatever. So that's our plan for here. Then we have pretty typically our physical track and our piercing track. For physical, our best character is going to be Tangita, as he gets those recurring tanky summons every turn, which is super useful. We also have Tyrant Guard, who is a mainstay in these sort of tracks just for his damage reduction ability, which is great. We also have Snotflaga, who just gets recurring spawns every turn, which is good. We have Gibboscraps, who gets the tanky tank summon that can help carry you, and is also a mechanical. Other than that, it's really just whoever you have that you want to slot in. Your main important units here are going to be Tangita as well as Tyrant Guard. Another good unit that you can slot in is the new Blood Angels unit, Mataneo, as he gets those recurring summons each turn that despawn and respawn, which is great for soaking up damage. So I could definitely recommend putting him in here if you took the time to level him up a bit. And then for our last track, which is going to be the piercing only track, we're going to do a similar team with Tyrant Guard, Eldrion, and then we can use Incisus as well as Athena. And then if you have Ulf or Shosil, I definitely recommend Shosil. He's kind of functions as a Tangita in the piercing track. That's the team we're going to use. Incisus is going to be our only healer here, so he's just useful for healing up Tyrant Guard. Tyrant Guard is there, obviously, for the damage reduction ability. Eldrion's just there because he's a decently high-leveled Psyker, and he can just kill 2 enemies a turn and help buff the damage of some of your weaker units. And Shosil is just a great summoner. He's pretty much the same as Tangita, just with piercing instead of physical. So yeah, that's going to be our teams for the beta track. And now let's move on to the gamma. And don't worry, I will go through all the teams once again right at the end when we have them all constructed. So yeah. Alright, so for the gamma track, it's Imperial only, which is great because now a lot of the Imperial units are getting a lot more uses in these legendary release events where they were kind of a bit neglected in previous ones. So for our first team, we're going to go with a no mechanical, power, and minimum 3 hits team. And this will give us access to Brother Burchard, who's going to be great for us. And everyone should pretty much have him. Some other units that could be good here is Ulf. Ulf is a great unit. He's great at stomping summons. He has some AoE capabilities, pretty tanky. Just a great unit overall. We also can slot in Barkrio, who's a new Deathwing unit. He has the reusable active ability, which is great. He's also pretty tanky, so he'll be a great unit here. Other than that, if you have Celestine or Brother Jaeger, I would definitely recommend slotting either of those in. Definitely Brother Jaeger. If you have him, he will definitely carry you through this track. He's really amazing. But if you don't have him, feel free to just slot in whoever you have. Arjak is decent. He's a tanky unit. Asmodai is not great, but he's decently tanky, and I think he has a terrifying trait, so he's not too bad. But other than that, just slot in who you have. And this sort of track is just going to be the same as what I talked about previously in the last one. If you start struggling and you get up to a decent amount of stage with this team, then you're going to want to switch off the power trait, and then here you can get some really great units. You can get Bellator, Isabella, and Brother Burchard. You can get that full Isabella turtle team to really just take you as far as you can possibly go. But other than that, just to get the most points possible, we're going to use that 3 trait team. And for our next traits, we have range and max 2 hits. So we're going to do those together. And this gives us access to Chanjita, who I already talked about is super great. We also slot in Commissar Yarrick, who is a decent unit. He's pretty tanky, and he has some summons. Other than that, we can slot in Azrael if you have him. He's not bad. You could slot in Varro or Certus if you have them decently high leveled. Really just whoever you have decently high leveled. I definitely recommend Actus, so you can get 2 of those Tangita summons each turn. Pretty much your main team here is just going to be Tangita and Actus, and healing Tangita and getting those summons every turn to soak up the damage and kill a bunch of enemies for you. Alright, so these are our final teams. I'll go over all of them quick and give you some different options just so you know the extent to how you can customize these teams to best fit your account. So for the Alpha No Imperials, really your best bet here is just the trio, Rotbone, Malladus, Angrax. That combination of traits is going to take you the furthest. Flying and Psychic are both going to be a little bit more difficult. Flying is definitely going to be a bit easier because you have Aleph Null and Rebos, especially if your Aleph Null is really high leveled. You'll be able to get super far with that trait. Psychic is definitely going to be the most difficult here. What you're going to want to focus on is just spamming out as many summons as possible with your Abraxas Yazagor combo, and then just cleaning up with Angrax to keep those summons pumped. And those are all going to be the best possible teams for this because there's no Imperials, so you have no access to Isabella, who's the best healer. So I would recommend focusing the most on your Angrax, Malladus, and Rotbone combo. You could also focus a bit on the Aleph Null Revos combo. And then your best bet for getting as far as possible in Psychic is going to be your Abraxas, Yazagor, and Archamados. For the Beta No Chaos, you have a bit more options here. So for Physical and Piercing, you're going to pretty much have to do those on your own. Those are usually the most difficult tracks because you don't really have any access to good healers or anything. So for Piercing, your main column is going to be Incisus and Tyrant Guard alongside units like Shosil, who can get summons every turn, and your Psycho like Eldrion. For Physical, main combo here is going to be Tyrant Guard as well as Tangita. You have no healers here, so you're just going to try to protect yourself with your summons. So through Tangita getting those mechanical summons each turn, and Tyrant Guard turtling just to keep everyone super tanky. You could also use some other supplemental summoners like Gibboscraps, Matineo, the new character, as well as Snotflaga. And then for the no big target, minimum 3 hits, and mechanical traits, this team is just to get you the most points as possible when you're starting out. But if you start to struggle with this team, I would recommend dropping the mechanical and just going all in on no big target and minimum 3 hits. There you can use your Isabella team, the turtle team with super tanky units with Mark 10 Gravis like Brother Burchard as well as Bellator. And even if you don't have Isabella, those units together will really carry you as they're just super tanky on their own. And for your mechanical team, if you could push pretty high with that too, just doing mechanical on its own. So we could use Tangita as well as Aleph Null, Rivas, and Actus. So here we got like pretty much two combos going, the Aleph Null Rivas combo, which is really great for tankiness and staying alive, as well as the Tangita and Actus combo, which will just help you get those summons out 2 each turn, which is great. So that's our best bet for Beta No Chaos. Finally, for Gamma, which is Imperial only, you have a ton of options here. We're going to want to do range and 2 hits together, I feel like. Just gives you the most range and gives you access to good enough characters that you'll be able to push pretty far. Our main combo here is just going to be Tangita and Actus. Actus just healing Tangita and getting those 2 summons every turn, and then just supplement in whatever characters you have. Varo's not bad because he has the passive ability which will buff the block chance just to make them a little bit tankier. You also slot in like Azrael or Commissar Yarick, just decently good on their own tanky-ish Imperial units. Then for the no mechanical power and minimum 3 hits, we're going to want to use this team just as far as we can get so we can get the most points for the least amount of energy. And our main characters here are going to be Brother Burchard as well as Ulf. You could also use Arjak as well as Barkwheel, who's the brand new character. And if you have it, definitely utilize Brother Jaeger. He's a really strong character, especially with his passive ability. He's going to be able to pretty much solo this track for you at high enough levels. But if we start to struggle too much for this, we're just going to drop the power track and just do no mechanical and minimum 3 hits. And then just like I said with the beta track, we're going to use just that Isabella team with those tanky Mark 10 Gravis armor units like Brother Burchard as well as Bellator. And even if you don't have Isabella, those 2 characters together, as long as you wait enough to get your full round of Bellator summons out, that should be able to push you still pretty far. And then for the power team, we can go pretty decent on our own with that. Some of the best characters we have there are Brother Jaeger. If you have him, he will be really good for you. Marnius Calgar, if you have him, is obviously really great. I recommend slotting him in wherever you can get him. He also has the Mark 10 Gravis trait like Bellator and Burchard. Also, Barkwheel's not bad. Mataneo's not bad. Those are 2 new characters. Ulf is pretty good. And Commissar Yarick, Azrael, Celestine, those are all decent picks to slot in there. But main power unit that's going to be really good is always going to be Brother Jaeger. But yeah, overall, that's it. I think these are probably pretty much the best teams that you could possibly put together. Don't be like too strict on like, oh, I have to use exactly these units. Just use what you have. I try to give a decent amount of options and discuss like different picks so you guys can build around what units you actually have leveled up. And I wish you guys the best of luck in the event. I hope I was able to help you out. If you're able to get this character or able to get pretty far in the event and I helped in any way, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you want to use my refer a friend code right here, it'll give you 100 free Blackstone, and I'll also get some rewards as you level up. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.